Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Yes, welcome back to the channel everybody and welcome back to beautiful Taiwan, where today we are going to be discussing some of the cultural differences that I've had to adapt to here in Taiwan, being a British guy that grew up in a quintessentially British family surrounded by very British traditions and customs. But now I find myself 9,000 kilometers away from all of that British deliciousness here in the heart of Asia, trying my best to adhere to the Taiwanese way of life and follow their traditions and customs, while still trying to maintain some of my original British heritage and share that with the Taiwanese, but also trying my best not to offend anybody. So let's get to the first of the big differences between the two cultures that I first noticed upon arriving in Taiwan, and that has to be the sense of humor. I, just like many British people, have a very sarcastic sense of humor, and of course I find myself hilarious, but other people sometimes can be looking at me when I've made a joke like, what the hell are you talking about? And that is definitely true here in Taiwan. And I don't think I'm the only Brit that's traveled abroad that faces this problem. Even a lot of the American people here, they just don't understand or don't get why we like to make this kind of joke. But just to give you an example of how this sarcastic sense of humor can backfire on me here in Taiwan, when I first arrived and started my job as a teacher, I was asked by my supervisor to change my accent just a little bit because my strong British Liverpool accent was a little hard for the kids to understand. I was teaching them things like the blue bus is next to the purple car and the yellow bus is next to the red car. As you can see, an accent that probably needs to change for the benefit of my students. But when I told my supervisor that it's impossible for me to change my accent and for a British guy to do so, it would be an offense against all of the kings and queens that have ever ruled the country, and possibly my passport would be taken away, she looked very confused and didn't know what the hell to do. And probably a lot of people watching this are thinking, well, that's not funny. Why would you say that?
That's not funny. That's super sad.
Well, where I come from, especially from the city of Liverpool in England, that's just how we joke with each other. It's how we pull each other's leg or tease each other. And I know that it does happen in Taiwan. Friends will tease each other and make jokes about each other. And in fact, some of my Taiwanese friends, they like to make the occasional joke about how much weight I've gained since I've lived here. And if I look offended or upset, then they'll happily tell me, no, that's because we are close and we feel there is somewhat of a trust between us. It's just a bit different, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what the difference between the two sense of humors is. So yeah, be careful with sarcasm if you're a Brit coming here, and if anybody asks you to change your accent at work, just say, yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, on to the second of the cultural differences that I've noticed between my two countries, and that's going to bring us to body language. Now, I know that's a pretty general, non-specific topic, but when it comes to hand gestures, then I've noticed some very... What am I talking about? Hand gestures. starting with the two-finger salute. Now, if you see this in Taiwan, it generally means yay, cute, for a photo. If you see it in England, well, it's still quite positive. It's more like a peace symbol, reminiscent of the 60s, the hippie era. But turn it around in Taiwan, and it pretty much still means the same thing. Yay, cute, or more of a cool photo gesture. But turn it around in England, give that to somebody in England, and you're probably going to end up with a black eye. As there's no way of sugarcoating this, it basically means f*** off. There are people taking photos here and I'm shouting f*** off. Okay. Similar in feeling to a middle finger that you might use to insult somebody, but the two fingers is more of a British hand gesture, and the middle finger would be considered more American. Interestingly, the two fingers F off gesture is said that it comes from the archers when we used to fight with bow and arrows, and when they captured the British soldiers, they would cut off those two fingers. So you would use that towards the enemy to say that, look at me, F off, I've still got my two fingers, you didn't capture me yet. Some debate online as to whether that's true or not, but pretty cool story. One other big difference between the two countries when it comes to body language is the way that people laugh, especially girls. Here in Taiwan, when girls laugh, they will tend to cover their mouth quite a cute way, and sometimes even squat down, almost sitting on the floor. Very strange to see for the first time, but you kind of get used to it and can kind of imitate it, and I think people like to see foreigners imitating this gesture. When we laugh in the UK, we generally do it with reckless abandon, mouth open wide, an outward expression of our feeling, and don't really care about covering our mouth or being shy. Oh man, people are going to think I'm insane. We may even throw in a good old pig snort for good measure. What am I doing? What am I doing? But yeah, it's true. One other body language difference that I want to talk about is the good old-fashioned wink. And this one is actually one that a Taiwanese friend of mine noticed when she traveled to the UK, and when she came back I asked her about her trip, and she said, yeah, there's a bit of strange thing that waiters and shopkeepers will wink as they say goodbye, and she was asking me, is it normal? Well, it's difficult for me to say on each individual case, because yes, of course, there are creepy, flirty guys that will use a wink as a way of attracting a girl's attention, or of course there can be sincere, bubbly, happy guys that just use it as a way of being friendly. You are love. But here in Taiwan, winking at somebody is pretty much 100% considered a creepy, flirty part of our body language, so it's best to be avoided altogether. And on to my third cultural difference between the UK and Taiwan, and that's definitely got to be the drinking culture. Now, I did make a 1 hour long special live stream discussing this exact topic last week with Prozzy. All of my Patreons can see that right up here. Go check it out if that's something you're interested in. But yes, the drinking culture between Taiwan and the UK couldn't be any more different if we tried. Although I drink much less than I used to, I do still enjoy the occasional beer or 7 on a Friday night after a long week of work, but now usually I prefer to find one single comfortable bar where I can sit back and relax with just 2 or 3 friends. In the UK, a Friday night out is a relatively large affair. Usually people will get dressed up, wear their best clothes, start with pre-drinks at their or their friend's home, onto a pub, then maybe a classy wine bar, and possibly later onto a club. And it's not unusual for a night out to end in absolute drunken disaster back in the UK. One friend will be throwing up into the gutter, another will be missing somewhere in the city, and another couple of friends might be having a brawl in the street. It may sound like I'm over-egging it, but you only have to search YouTube for Booze Britain, a very famous series about our pub drinking culture, and you'll see what I'm saying is 100% true. It has to be seen to be believed. Here in Taiwan, disastrous nights out like this of course can happen, and people do sometimes drink too much, throw up, or get involved in some kind of argument or fight. But I feel the difference is that it's not as much accepted as part of culture, and people will be looked down upon or feel shame if they get involved in some negative, violent activity after drinking. Back in the UK, it's just considered a little bit more normal for people to go out on what we call a binge drinking night out, where your goal is to get absolutely hammered and wake up with a 1 or 2 day hangover. So I'm going to keep this video short and end it there after just 3 of the biggest cultural differences that I've noticed between Taiwan and the UK. But of course I understand there's an almost infinite number of differences that I could have mentioned, and that's where you come in. If you know of any differences between the UK and Taiwan, then share them in the comment section down below. Have you been to the UK, either as a visitor or a long-term resident? Have you studied in the UK? What did you notice that was completely different between the UK and Taiwan? Feel free to share it below and we'll have a chat about it. I'm really interested to see my country through the eyes of other people that go to visit it. Therefore, let's have a chat. But as for now, time for me to wrap this video up, say goodbye. As always, I've got to get myself off to class to educate the masses of Taiwan. But before I go, I do want to say thanks so much to all of you for watching. If you are watching to the very end of the video, then you automatically qualify into my team VVVIP, for which I'm eternally grateful. And of course my patrons over on Patreon, thanks to you guys for your unending support. But I think that's pretty much it. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll see you next time in My Life in Taiwan. Peace.